Hello and welcome to today's Head to Toe 365 speaker webinar. Before we get started, I'd like to review a few housekeeping items so you know how to best participate in today's event. Similar housekeeping notes will be provided before your virtual presentation by your session host. I have muted everyone by default so we won't be disrupted by latecomers. When you want to talk, just click on the microphone icon in the bottom bar to mute or unmute yourself. Please share your shining face and have your camera on. To see everyone participating in the session, select the gallery mode, which is the icon of the 9 squares on the top right corner. If you haven't done so already, please make sure your name and organization appear under your image by clicking on the Participants button. Hover over your name and clicking Rename. You can submit your questions anytime during the presentation. To do so, just type into the chat at the bottom control panel, and I'll keep track of the questions for the presenter. We'll address as many questions as time allows. If you have any technical issues, you can also use the chat feature to communicate with me directly. If you get cut off, you can return to the session at any time using the same link that was included in the invitation. We will be recording this webinar, which will be housed in the speaker corner of the Head to Toe website. We will include timestamps to help you quickly find a specific section. For those not familiar with the Zoom platform, I'm going to quickly show you where everything I just mentioned is located. To unmute your microphone, click here. To change the name that appears on your picture, go to the participants list here, then click on your name and edit. To comment or ask questions, use the chat box here. You can also send a private message to a specific attendee or the speaker. To see the faces of all the session participants, select the gallery mode here. This mode shows up to 25 to 49 people depending on the processing speed of your computer. I'm using the annotation feature to make these arrows, which you can use during your own presentation. The options can be found here. Additional guidance and short help videos with this information will be posted on the Head to Toe website in the near future. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce our presenter, Laura Kesselman, President of Kesselman Jones and producer of the Head to Toe conference. Enjoy the presentation.
Head to toe. So therefore, we have created and launched, you can see there's an official logo, Head to Toe 365. And really the idea is to offer a perpetual opportunity for people to access content specifically for school health providers. We will have this platform free until the actual Head to Toe conference takes place next year. And so anybody, whether they've attended Head to Toe in the past or not, can either participate in one of the live presentations or access the recordings. In August, we're going to officially launch the library and the Head to Toe platform. And so what we're doing now with your help between May and July is curating our content for that library. And then we'll continue with virtual presentations and hopefully do those at least every month, and then continue to curate more content at the conference and really create an exciting, robust library, which will eventually be a value added. The goal is that once Head to Toe takes place, we'll shut it down for free, and it'll become a benefit for Head to Toe registrants, and it'll become something that can hopefully generate a little bit of additional revenue so that we can improve the platform for our participants. The other thing is we did get permission from all of the boards to carry over the continuing education. So as long as you've given us permission to record, people will earn their continuing education, and just the live people if you're not giving us permission to record the session. We hope that you all are, and we know that most of you have given us permission because we think this, again, is going to be a valuable tool. So again, we're going to focus on the content right now. The other thing is people are asking about Head to Toe. Our hope is to do a mini Head to Toe September 29th in conjunction with the American School Health Association Conference, which is scheduled to be in Albuquerque starting on the 30th. So we'll be piggybacking with that conference. Hopefully we'll be able to have a gathering. If not, we will pivot our plan again and go straight into our head to toe in this spring. So that's sort of the plan with Head to Toe 365. We hope that you're excited about it. And again, we could not do this without you. So thank you very much for allowing us to give this a shot and see if we can offer something new and exciting for our school health professionals. So with that, let's do another quick poll. So I'd like to get your feedback about how you feel about doing a virtual presentation. Poll, please. So it looks like we obviously, yes, we're concerned about online. We're concerned about a little bit about the technology, concerned about just how we're going to make it work. I'm really happy to see that how many of you are excited about trying it. But what I want to let you know, and please let me know if you're not seeing the slides because we are all working a lot of buttons, but you're not alone. So I call this the public speaking trifecta. So you know, a lot of people just aren't fans of public speaking. What did they say? 75% of the population, according to our slide. So you have to speak in public, you have to do it on camera, and I know there's a lot of people that don't like to be on camera. I am one of them. And then also we have to deal with technology all at the same time. And so it is a challenge, but it's a challenge that we can all work through. And I do want to let you know that being camera, it's just not your thing. There's a brain science to it. In the end, I'll send a link to a really interesting article about why some of us might not like to see us on camera. And the truth is because what we see on camera is what everybody else sees, but it's what we never see. So we're sometimes surprised to see what we really look like, and then we're not used to it. So anyways, you're not alone. We're all sort of in the same boat. I see that we have a group of people that have done a bunch of presentations, and so that's great. And we're going to open it up a little later for you to share some of your experiences, because I think at this point in time, we can all be learning from each other. And so I think sharing is really important. So one of the things that we're going to try to do in this presentation, as you're seeing already, is to show you how some of these tools can be used, and some of them we're doing a little more smoothly than others, because the truth is we're still learning and gaining as much knowledge as we can to share with you about the best way to do these presentations. So I thank you also for your patience. So let's go ahead and just talk about your setup and some of the technical aspects of your presentation. So overarching, you know, what's the same and what's the difference? So basically, when it comes to virtual presentations, you have all the same stuff that goes with your live presentation. And you need to, I also think everything is magnified when you do things virtually. So you still need to know who your audience is. You still need to figure out what your takeaways are. You still need to worry about your slides and in some ways even more, because somebody could be watching this on their phone, so their screen is this big, or they could be splitting the screen, so your slides are even smaller. You still need to prepare, you still need to practice. So really it's just the execution that's different, and then adapting your presentation to work in this little, I call it the Brady Bunch format, with all these little squares of people staring at you. And then the fact that I can't get immediate gratification to know if you appreciate my sense of humor or if you are understanding the content that I'm sharing with you. So I think really it's just the execution. So we're going to work on the execution a little bit. And that's really the goal of this presentation. So we're going to look at real quickly the equipment, you know, basically the setup of your computer, the atmosphere that you're creating behind you, and then making sure that you look the best that you can. So let's talk about your equipment. So your computer. If the one thing I can tell you is if you're using a laptop, please make sure that you have it plugged in. Webinar and Zoom will drain a lot from your battery, especially if you're also running a lot of different things. So the last thing you want to do is for your computer to crash. I also want you to know that a lot of some of the Zoom features, and we also we'll let you know, for example, the backgrounds and a couple other things, how many people you can see on the screen. That will be impacted by the processing speed of your computer. So if you have an older computer, and I'm talking 2018 and older, so that's not that old, it's very likely you will have issues with the Zoom backgrounds, which is why we don't suggest it unless you 100% are make sure that it's working properly. You might not be able to show as many people on the screen. So those are things to know about your computer. So with your webcam, simple advice, and I always think about it. I was always complaining when I took photos on my phone. I was like, why do they turn out so crappy? Everybody else's pictures look so good. Bottom line is my lens was dirty, and so all my pictures were blurry. So make sure you just do something simple as dust off the lens on your webcam. If you're using a laptop, you don't know how many times your finger has gone on it, opening and closing your screen. So make sure you just dust off your lens, make sure that it's clean. You also want to make sure that you raise your laptop so that your camera is eye level. You want to get it as close to eye level as possible, unless you really want to stretch your neck, and then you might want it up a little bit so you're looking up. So you really want to look at the angle that you're using for your presentation. You don't want people looking under your chin, up your nose, on the top of your head. My personal pet peeves is ceiling fans, having to see a ceiling fan twirling behind someone. So you really want to play with that. People have used books to raise their laptops. Someone creatively used a cake plate, which has a tier onto it. Anything you can do. My husband actually just made me a great stand so I can do presentations standing up, which is a pro tip, that if you can do that, I think the energy is different when you're standing than when you're sitting. And remember, when you present to a live audience, you're almost always standing. So it will change the dynamic. So if you can figure out a way to stand, do your presentation, if you need to use your hands and be yourself and be comfortable, play around with that. So, so microphone. So I prefer not having a big headset when I'm giving a presentation. I think that's fine when I'm in a meeting or listening, but the headset is sometimes helpful for dealing with feedback and making sure that you can hear all the questions and everything. If you decide you do need to use a headset, I always suggest earbuds. Again, you want to look like a professional and not like a call center operator. So I think that just changes the look of the appearance. And then you want to try to find, obviously, a quiet location, one that there's not going to be a lot of noise and background interruptions. And we'll go over some tips of controlling your microphone a little later on. And then, of course, good Wi-Fi. If you can be on a machine that is hardwired and not using the Wi-Fi in your home, that is the best, because you're going to get the best streaming signal. Also, if you have other people at home, it's a good time to remind them that's not the time to watch Netflix. If you have kids that are doing online learning, make sure you schedule your presentation when they're not online and drawing a lot from your feed, because you can control some of that. The other thing is to make sure also with your computer that you turn everything off. You close everything on your computer, all the other systems except the Zoom and then your PowerPoint or whatever you're going to click to, because that will also slow down your presentation a little bit. So the other thing is backgrounds matter, and I wish I was modeling a better background, but I actually just moved from home to my office because my computer setup here is a little bit more forgiving than mine at home right now. So I think backgrounds do matter. There is a really fun website called Room Rater. It's a Facebook site where they're actually rating the backgrounds of all of the personalities and celebrities. And I think you can actually learn a lot, because you can see what's distracting, what's not distracting. So when you're giving a presentation, you do want them focused on you. So you want to find, the least distracting. If you have a ton of clutter, ton of photos, maybe pull it down. Anything too personal you want to take away. You know, you don't want to let people too much into your personal life. That's my feeling. So, you know, think very carefully about your background, move your computer a lot, and see what would work best for you. I love this one. The top one was rated a fan favorite, which is just kids' pictures behind him. So it could have been just a blank wall, which I think would be great for a school health presentation. And the other one, which is the cry for help, is, you know, this very sparse office and, you know, stuff behind. I'm sure there's probably worse pictures. I didn't want to pull a really bad one. So, you know, really think about what's behind you. Lighting is also very important. You want to find the best lighting. You do not want to have a window behind you. You don't want to have weird lighting. I actually have a desk lamp with the shade off to my left, and so you can see a sort of a warm light coming behind me because I have weird lights from my shade. I think you know, you want to do whatever you can to make it easier for people to look at you. And I think, you know, the lighting is important. You don't want big shadows on your face. And then with attire, I think a little bit about some of the tips you'd give if you were doing an interview on television. You know, not crazy loud things, jewelry that jangles, that's going to hit the microphone. So again, you want them to focus on your face and to enjoy hearing your presentation. So Claudia is going to show you another quick little video that actually this is a little quick video that will show you some of the advanced features in Zoom to work with your lighting and your sound.
I am going to show you where some of the advanced settings are to help you control the audio and video within your Zoom. We are going to start by editing the video settings. In the bottom left corner next to the camera icon, click on the upward arrow, then select Video Settings. The settings screen will then pop up. You'll first want to make sure that the Enable HD feature is checked. This will make your image much sharper. There is also a Touch Up My Appearance option that you might try. It is personal preference if you want to use this or not. If you want to use a Zoom virtual background, click on the Virtual Background tab. This is something we do not recommend using because it can be very distracting. Also, some computers do not have the capability to do this option. You can add an image by clicking on the little plus sign on the right side. You'll then select an image from your computer, then click on it to use it. I will now go over the audio settings, so click on the audio tab within the screen. In this first screen, you can test your speaker and test your microphone. You know that your microphone is working if the bar is jumping up and down, showing that it is reading your voice. When you click on the test speaker button, a sound will play. You want to make sure to hear it to know that your speakers are working. In the bottom right corner, you want to click on the advanced settings. The advanced settings gives you the options to manually set your background noise settings. You will have to try them to determine what is best for your environment. If you have some time, we suggest exploring these features and discover what each does and how it can help you improve your Zoom experience.
Great. So I'd like to take a little break and see, first of all, Jackie, are there any questions in the chat that we need to answer? And then open it also up to everyone to ask any questions that they have so far in the presentation.
At this moment, no questions.
Okay. Anything? Okay, so those little videos we will be putting on the speaker corner, so you can actually go back and watch those. And we'll be creating additional content. We're trying to create content and guidance as quickly as we can in our office for you. So know that the speaker's corner for head to toe on the website is still going to be in play, and we're going to start adding to that probably at the end of the week. We'll start adding all of these things onto that site. Quick poll, Claudia, put that up. Where do I look when presenting?
Laura, I have a question. I received an email this week that indicated that we were needing to change our presentation dates and times.
There's just 4 presenters. We're going to push a week later. So okay. I think you were actually the second presenter in our series.
Okay.
And the bottom line is we're just having a horrible time getting our platforms to respond to us with questions.
Yeah.
And so we had to delay things a little bit. So we're just going to start the next week with the webinar. So we're just asking you if you can push it, and we'll give you open times, or there's other times that you can just pick random times. But we want to make sure that we do our best at marketing your presentation. And we were afraid because we couldn't do it because of a holdup of a technical issue, that we didn't want to shortchange you. So pushing you just a little bit later.
Okay, then that makes perfect sense to me. But when I went in to schedule the date, the 6th was open. So
yeah,
you don't want to do the 6th?
No, I actually everything after the 12th. And actually, if you want to just work directly with Jackie,
Okay.
you can pick any time or date, and we can just squeeze you in there. So yeah, I had added the additional dates, but I didn't take off that first week because I was afraid it would delete all the other dates. More
Okay.
technology to deal with.
I
So
get it.
nobody's looking at the kids and pets that came into the room, so that's a good deal. But yes, so you actually look at the camera, and it's really hard because I'm trying. And I've got you guys on my screen. I've got the poll here. I've got my PowerPoints on a whole other monitor, and I got my notes down here. So really the best thing, and tell me if you can see the difference, I am looking at the camera now, and it should make my eyes actually go to you versus when I'm looking down at the screen or down on my notes. People will see if you're reading. So you do need to pay attention. Like, just because you're virtual doesn't mean you should be reading your notes, because the number one we get complaints in our live sessions is people read their notes. We know that's going to carry over to our virtual sessions. And really, you guys are experts. You know this stuff. I'd like to say, I know all this stuff, but we're learning as quick. And so I actually have a lot of notes of things that I'm still learning to share with you. So that's my excuse for using my notes, is not a lot of time to get content together. So practice looking at the camera. Make sure the camera is someplace comfortable for you. And then also you might want to think about your placement of your notes. Remember, you cannot use the notes view on your PowerPoint, because the attendee is going to see what's ever on your screen. And so that's what's happening. So the only other thing to do is, if you really want to do that, is have a laptop with your PowerPoint and your notes, but now you're running two, potentially could be running two PowerPoints. You could also, like, you can't see me do it, like clip them up right next to your, on your monitor right next to the camera. So at least you're looking up and over and not looking down. So a lot of little tricks to help you present a little bit better, but do as much as you can, because you can see what happens, when you look down. So now let's just review some Zoom features that, let's see, do my slide. Yes, we're going to review some Zoom features that you might want to be using in your session, and sort of show you how they work. So that's another video, correct, Claudia? So we're going to look at screen share, chat, polling, and breakout rooms.
Screen share is how you show your PowerPoint, Prezi, video, document, or website. If you have multiple monitors, you will select which monitor to show. This can be opened and closed during the presentation. Select screen share from the bottom of your screen, and a window will open up that shows you the open applications to select from. This will show exactly what's on your screen, so make sure you've prepared your files. For example, you've opened the slideshow feature in PowerPoint or queued a video. This is why you can't use the presenter notes in PowerPoint, and you want to make sure everything unnecessary is closed on your computer during your meeting. Note that when you're sharing your screen, the menu flips to the top. You now also have the option to annotate. If you choose to use the annotate feature, we do recommend that you clear all drawings before proceeding to the next slide. Click the More button to see other advanced features. The control panel also offers the option to pause your screen share or share something new. You should have the same sharing options as before. To stop sharing, click on the Stop Share button. Now let's discuss the polling feature. Zoom allows for single or multiple choice polling questions, and they can be anonymous or not. Polls are easy to set up in advance of your session. Just send us your polling questions and we will create it for you. Please have your session host launch your poll and show the result. A great feature in Zoom is breakout rooms. Zoom allows you to send your attendees to breakout rooms during your session. This is great to encourage small group work. You decide how many groups you want and if you want the system to automatically assign it or you want to do it manually. After you designate the groups, you're given an option to open all the rooms. This will send attendees a notification to click into their rooms. When the rooms are open, you will see a list of all of them. You can jump from room to room to see how the conversations are progressing by selecting Join. You can also send a message with additional guidance or instructions. When you want them to come back, just select Close Breakout Room. The system will give them a 60-second countdown before they are automatically brought back. There are some advanced setup options here that you might want to modify. Remember, our office is here to help you if you need assistance with any of these features.
That was a lot of information. If you have not used any of those, and again, we will be posting them up on the website. And what I'm going to also be covering is that you are not going to be alone. Just like we do with the live sessions, you will have a room host. And your room host is there to support your technical aspects of your presentation. So let me go over real quickly the room host, and I'm going to do this. One of the other things I wanted to also point out is, again, we are trying to showcase all the different things that you can do in your presentation. Now, one of the reasons we had to use video for those is you can't show your Zoom screen on Zoom. So we can't point to anything because our screen is going to look different than yours. But you could also think about using video during your presentation. If there's a section that you want to pre-record and even edit, if it's something that you just hear some information and then you can watch along with your attendees, answer chats in the chat room, and then pick up as soon as that piece is done and take a little bit of pressure off yourself. You can also easily incorporate videos into your presentation as well this way. So now let's talk about your session host. So just like in person, your session host is going to make sure your session starts on time. They're going to let people into the room. They are going to do the housekeeping just like Claudia did in the beginning for me, so you don't need to worry about that. You will need to share your screen with them so that they can go ahead and help you. They can monitor the chat for you. They can let you know if questions have come up. I suggest, if you notice, I said, hey, Jackie, are there any questions in chat? Because it's so hard to do all of this and watch the chat. So they'll watch the chat for you. They'll deal with any technical issues that come up. You could have attendee that, my sound isn't working. How do I do this? They'll be dealing with that through the chat and through either direct chat or group chat to take that burden off of you. They can run the polls for you. If you have the polls, you can say, Claudia, can you run the next poll, please? They can open it, they can close it, they can put the responses up, so you don't need to do that. If you want, they can run the PowerPoint for you. If you give them the cues or give them a script, they can do that for you too. They'll provide some closing housekeeping to talk about the continuing education units. and then just assist you in any way that you need. So, you are not alone. You have a co-pilot, and the list is long of things that they can do to try to help you with your presentation. I actually have 2 people helping me on this presentation, and if you have a lot of technology, you just let us know if you think you need more support, and we can make it happen for you. So the majority of the hosts will probably be someone from my staff. We might have some from Department of Health. If you feel like you want to be a host on somebody's session, feel free to volunteer. We're really trying to find people that can handle the technical side as well as the welcome and warming side of the presentation. So are there any questions about your host right now?
No questions in the chat.
No questions in the chat? Okay. You can feel free to use the little raise your hand and let us know if you have anything. So here's the key milestones that come together with your presentation. So first of all, we're going to ask that you have a meeting as long as you want. It can be very brief or it could be very extensive with the person assigned to be your host. During this session, you're going to talk about how you want to work with them. What are the features that you're going to be using? Do you want to have breakouts? Are you going to be using polling? You can talk about all of that with your hosts and come up with a plan of how you're going to work together. So I actually, for this presentation, made a script and actually said, I'll be changing this slide. Claudia's be doing this. Jackie's going to be doing this. And so we know throughout whose responsibility would be. And then they also know, like, if something happens, you have the script and here's some of the things that you can do, to troubleshoot. You also will need to submit any materials so that we can make them available, and let us know if you want them to be available prior to the session. You can them out with the session or give it to people after the session. So it's really important just to have this conversation to deal with the technical aspects. And if you want to do it on Zoom and you want to play with your co-host on the features, going back and forth, sharing the screen, that is what we would highly recommend, so that we can make sure, put up your PowerPoints. We'll tell you what do they look like on our end when our screens are split, and maybe you need to increase the font size. So I think that's a really important first meeting. And again, that's one of the reasons for the delay, is for that first week to give you a chance to meet with your hosts. So 30 minutes prior, we're going to suggest you actually go on to the Zoom meeting, make sure all of your things are uploaded or waiting on your screen. Go with, and your room host will be there, and just run a quick test through everything one more time, like the videos. And hey, the sound isn't working this time. I wonder why. And so just run through everything, and then you can take a break, get some water. 15 minutes prior to your session, we will open the weight rooms and allow people to come in. We suggest that you actually be on there and start chatting with people and, greet people and thank them for coming. That could be the role of the room host, or if you want to have some pre-chat and get to know some of your attendees, you can do that as well during those 15 minutes. And then when showtime starts, remember that your host will actually kick off the session, so you don't need to worry about doing anything. And then they will introduce you, just a brief introduction. Everybody will have your bio and everything from when they selected your session. So we're not going to go into that detail, but just a quick brief introduction, and then the show is yours. When I'm scheduling the webinars, one of the things that you can also discuss and let us know, we had talked about 60 minutes. Originally, some of them were 90 minutes. You need to let us know how much time you really need for your presentation. I do find that when you're doing interactive sessions, especially through this platform, it takes more time than you think. So if you're going to have an open dialogue or do a Q&A or go into breakout rooms, you might need an hour and 15, an hour and 30 minutes, or if you have that much content or you're bringing in a guest speaker. So just let us know so we can post. Many of our sessions were actually approved for the longer amount of time. So again, you need to just let our office know how long you want so we can post the appropriate amount. And then I'm going to add always 10 to 15 minutes just for the housekeeping. And all the sessions will probably start maybe 1, 2, 3 minutes late at the most, but we will try to start them on time. We want to build that as a habit, that we're not going to start 10 minutes late or 5 minutes late. So any question about the setup or the room host? No.
I have
So
a question. Sorry. Hi, how are you, Laura?
Casey
Um,
Fox, and
this
you're not
is
Casey. That's right.
Susan Aquino. You said we will be assigned a host. Will we be getting a list of a personal host that maybe we can meet up, as you said, where, because I have a PowerPoint and I also have a video.
Yes.
And I think I said this in the email several times to Jackie. I'm so not computer savvy. And I really, definitely want to be able to show it. And it's about, I think, a good hour, but maybe if possible, I didn't know we could get a little extension for time for questions or Q&As. It would be like an hour and a half, that'd be great, yeah.
Sure. So yeah, so we will actually do an introduction to your host, and then the two of you can work to set up a time
That's great.
for your meeting. And
That's great,
if you
thank you.
want to hand over all technical stuff to your host and say, I'm going to speak, and then I'm going to say, next slide, or please play video.
Perfect.
And then you don't have to do any of that. So
That's
just
great.
know that that's an option.
Okay, thank you.
So any other questions? Feel free to just,
I have a question, Laura.
yes, Teresa.
I'm wondering about, we had planned a really interactive workshop style session. And so there's going to be like a small group breakout, and they'll have materials to review and then discuss. I'm kind of wondering how that's going to work. So it's like each group will have their own set of materials. They're like case studies.
Okay, so
Thinking about how we distribute those virtually.
Okay, so in the breakout rooms, we can actually pre-assign them to the people who are
Great.
registered. Now, just because they registered doesn't mean they're going to be there, so we might have to do some last minute shuffling. But what we could also do is either send people the materials in advance as an attachment. We can have them as a link in the chat box. If you're in group one, click here and you can get your materials. We can do it that way. But we can actually pre-assign if we need to, or we can do it on the fly. So there are two different ways of doing that. So that's totally doable in a presentation and using the breakout rooms in chat. And what we're going to do, and I know some of you have done this before, but the next thing we're going to do is go into just a very quick breakout so you can see what it feels like from the attendee's perspective to go into a breakout room, and how you can control that as the presenter as well. And so this is interesting because I'm looking at you talking, but the camera's up there. So so definitely you can make that happen. So any other questions about room hosting, doing your presentation in this format? Because we have one more section, which is talking about engagement. Any other questions? Okay. So the last piece of the presentation is talking about engagement and having an interactive presentation. And it's funny because I do this exact same thing when we're trying to do the live presentations, because the bottom line is the best practice for learning methodology is people need to interact and engage with your information. That the lecture style makes it very difficult for people, to actually figure out how to apply that when they get back to their offices and get back to their schools. So we really want to figure out how we can reinforce the information that you're providing and give people an opportunity to process the information. People have to actually think about it. And sometimes when you're just hearing it, you're actually not giving the opportunity to really think and to put it into your challenges and your situation and figure out the best way to implement or to take that information and make it useful. So I think it's really important that these webinars be as interactive as possible, whether it's baby steps with polling or bigger steps with the breakout sessions, and find ways to connect people with the content. And then also, we have the challenge that we need to keep people engaged. There's two, monitors, multiple monitors. Not only could you be checking your phone, which you're doing in a live one, but now you can be checking your email. You've got stuff on your desk. There's tons of distractions. Now, a lot of people will say, well, now this is even harder because people are on their screens, their attention span's even shorter, 7 seconds, whatever. I don't know, have any of you ever binge watched Netflix? Your attention span can be really long if it's something you're interested in and you want to engage with. So the truth is, I mean, I don't know about you, I did attend a one-day virtual conference, and if the content's good, you don't want to even leave your monitor because you're getting so much good information. So don't use that as an excuse that, well, people don't have the attention span, they don't want to be on it. Hopefully we're getting people who want to be on and are going to engage with your material, but you need to work a little bit with them. So what I'd like to do now is Claudia is going to randomly assign you into 3 breakout rooms. I want you to just have a quick conversation. I'm going to give you like 6-7 minutes about how to make virtual sessions interactive. And for those of you who have done sessions or have watched sessions, I want you to share some of what you've seen and like, hey, this was a good presentation, or this wasn't a good presentation because of, so share some of your lessons learned. And then we're going to come back. I want you to each just assign somebody to report out some of the key things that came out of your discussion. And then we'll see how it works actually going into breakouts and coming back and reporting. So Claudia, can you go ahead? You're going to get a notification that tells you you have been assigned to a breakout room.
Laura, I actually don't have permission to.
You don't have permission, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. So we're going to do, so basically I'm telling it 3 rooms. It's going to assign automatically. It's going to create rooms, and I'm clicking open all rooms. So that's how quick it is. Now you should all have an invitation, correct? And then you just join the room. See ya. Okay, everybody's slowly coming back. And now everybody has to. Boom. Okay. All right. I think everyone's back. They're all clicking in. It is the best feature to force people to come back to a room. You can't do that in person. So that's the advantage. So you guys like the breakout rooms? Nod your head, hands up, clap, use all the little buttons. Yay. There's actually a reaction button where you can actually clap and do thumbs up if you haven't found that as well. And a power user feature, if you haven't located it, is you can actually change the skin tone of your hand. So Zoom is actually aware of our diversity. And so you can change the tone, and there's like 8 different skin tones you can change with your thumbs up. So I thought that was cool. Well, thank you for doing the breakouts. I think now that you see what it feels like from the participants' perspective. And I think it's a really viable way to have dialogue and conversation. So I'd like a really quick report out of some of the cool things that you heard in your room. Group 1, could someone report out for me? Do you know who group 1 was?
We talked about the whiteboard, and we kind of played with the whiteboard feature when we were in here, which was very helpful. Something else that just a sidebar, when the breakout is going to end, you get that warning. What I have found is that with my students, they'll get out of the breakout room, and then you sit there staring at each other when you get back. So you can change the setting on how long that warning is, because that's a waste of a whole minute, honestly.
Yep.
So just be aware that you can change that.
So yeah, that's a little power user thing. So there are other things that you can adjust in the breakout sessions. So that is definitely a feature. And the whiteboard feature, we didn't go over that, but that's a great way if you want people to all add comments and use it as a brainstorming board, or it's your flip chart basically that other people can write on. And you can do the whiteboard in the breakout rooms. So literally you can have your flip chart up in your breakout rooms. So if you do not have, there is a free Zoom account, so you can definitely go in there and play. If you need help with some of these things, we can get on a Zoom call and play with you. you know, this is a great, I heard some really great ideas in this room. And so I think we all do also need to share with each other as much as possible, because it does take time to learn a new platform, and time is something we just don't seem to have these days to move forward. So anything, group two, anything that came out of your discussion that was cool or exciting?
I nominate you, Karen.
I wasn't ready.
This is awesome. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. Well, which
I
oh,
liked
no,
your
we
little
talked
these
about,
things. Yeah.
oh, those little things. Yeah. Okay. So we talked about all kinds of things in our group, our group chat, and we talked about kind of like where you're looking and that whole thing about like finding, like even if you need to put a sticker on your computer for the camera and everything. But we also talked about having like little cards or pieces of paper where you, if someone's talking and everyone else is on mute, you can put up a little like, you know, love if you wanted to love or like someone's comments like on social media or something like that. Or if we're doing check-ins and we have to limit it to a certain amount of time, you can hold up a little thing that says time. So just little visual things, or using like a thumbs up, medium, or thumbs down for questions, things like that.
Great. That's cool. Cool stuff.
And thank you, Jeannie.
Group three, the Jen, that was your group, I think. Not that I'm calling on you, I just remember you were in the group.
So we actually just
I
discussed,
think we nominated Dan to speak. Oh, there's
yeah, and we just discussed kind of actually just reemphasized what was stated earlier, just about how kind of the best practices in face-to-face presentations are actually the best practices in the virtual presentations. Steve and I have both experience with teaching online, and so he actually gave a good tip, which I didn't know, is that you can, and I think you said, Laura, you're going to talk about it, where you can press the space bar and unpress to mute to respond. So that was a good tip, because I thought you just had to always press the mute and unmute.
Yeah, so the space bar does work that way. There is a setting that you may have to set, and so it required a little more explanation, because we have found that we've tried it in a couple of occasions and it didn't work, and then it got more confusing, so I didn't want to confuse you more. But yeah, so you can even try it, and you can even try it now. Everybody hit their space bar and see if their mic comes off.
Yep.
See, there you go. It's working. So Amanda's isn't, so she's like, no. So the other thing is, there are actually some shortcuts which we'll share with you, like keyboard shortcuts to share screen and things like that. So sometimes if you don't want to use your mouse because you're doing something on your keyboard, you can use those shortcuts, and we'll share those as well. I don't want to keep you, and I actually have—
Hey, Laura.
Yes.
Sorry, I had one. Michelle Hurling asked if we have ever used the Post-it notes on Zoom, which I haven't. I don't have experience in. But I was wondering if anyone here does have any feedback on the Post-it notes through Zoom.
Great. Post-it notes, Zoom Post-it notes. No one's used it? All right, we're going to play with it and let you know how we can use it. So anyways, here's the list that I sort of came up with, different things that you can do. And some of this also just thinking about how you structure your presentation, making sure that you give a little breathing air in it. It is, A, it's really hard just to talk for an hour, and B, it's hard to hear for an hour. So you should think about like chunking your information and then having process time or Q&A, or throw in a poll. Ask them, raise your hand if, and let them use their little hand raise button. We talked about the breakout rooms. Don't leave all the Q&A until the end, which is also the mistake people make in live presentations, leaving all the Q&A to the end. Come up with some kind of game. I want to have like, this bingo with, I say even from my my emails, if I see the word unprecedented times, I want to like get a dime for every time I see the expression unprecedented times. So like you can even, have some kind of game, a bingo game that you work throughout it, some kind of interactive game. There's a lot of lessons we can learn about how people are socializing using Zoom. We can learn and apply that to our presentations as well. literally call on individuals. Like, that is why it's important. And we asked you at the beginning to make sure that your name appears on the boxes. You have a big advantage than a live presentation, because now you actually see everybody's names and it's more personal in that way. Adding the videos, throwing up a little music if you need to. Infographics, things that people can really look at that visually show. I attended a presentation, and during the presentation, they had one of those sketch artists who were illustrating key thoughts that came out of the presentation. And every once in a while, they'd share the screen with him so you could see how he was illustrating the presentation. And it was fascinating, and it reinforced the key messages that were coming out of the presentation. There's obviously a cost to have someone who's that good who can draw during a presentation, but talk about providing another way for people to process information. For the visual learners, it's a really cool thing. If you haven't seen that, we can show you a video of what that looks like. And then as much chatting, involving conversations, letting people speak. Deciding what your room host the policy is on microphones. Do you want everyone muted? Do you want everyone not muted? Do you want to let people speak? Do you want control of who speaks, or can people just speak? Those are all things that you'll need to discuss and work out. And then making sure that you carry your content beyond the presentation. Share with us either we can give you access, or share with us information that we can give post presentation to the attendees to provide more information on the topic you presented. The other thing that your host can do during the session is, as you're referring to guidance, as you're referring to links, they can be posting them up in the chat menu. So it's a living, breathing area. One other thing about the chat, and it depends on how you're watching and how you're presenting. I know as an attendee, sometimes I turn off the chat because I feel like it's a bunch of people talking in the back of the room and I'm trying to watch a presentation. That's why we also have the host there for you, so that you don't have to be watching the chat, because it's literally like people talking during your presentation. So you want to sort of control that for yourself. So I'm going to open it back to you for some last questions. Is there anything you wish we covered that you didn't? Are you feeling better from this presentation? A little better equipped? Are you more terrified? Let me know how you're feeling right now.
Real quick, Laura, it looks like Barbara has her hand raised. I don't know if you're doing that on purpose, Barbara, but we do see that.
Okay. Are you just waving at us, Barbara?
The space bar. Okay. I'm on the space bar. Yeah, so just one other thing that dawned on me when we were in our breakout room. The first thing that we did was we introduced ourselves to each other and where we work. And one of the fabulous things about conferences and those kind of things is the whole networking ability. And so I was just wondering, like, this is an incredible group of people here today. And we can't pass cards out to each other. So have you all thought of a way of how do you share with each other so that we can get in contact with each other?
Those are things that we're still looking at, some of the technology. I mean, we sadly have a fully functional app for Head to Toe, which has a whole sharing module in it where people can, chat, have contacts, set meetings. So yeah, we could look at some of that stuff. We also suggest, if you look at like Deanna or Amanda's thing where it actually shows you where they work, I find that's actually really helpful. And as a presenter, you might want to encourage your attendees to do that when they sign in, and that is part of the housekeeping, because I also think it helps you know who's in the room and where people are from. And you can decide, maybe you want it, what part of the state they're from, or what city they're from, or what organization. But you can actually see quite a bit of text. So you might want to consider asking that. But so Barbara, that's a great question. We can, if anyone has any suggestions, if not, I also think very carefully about the length of time. An hour to me, it's so short, and we're at an hour and 12. And to be honest, I forgot to announce at the beginning that we were going to go an hour and 15. So in my mind, we're perfectly on track. But I forgot to tell you we were going to be an hour and 15 minutes. And that's the other thing to do at the beginning of the presentation, let people know we're going to go this long if you need to leave. And you also need to give people permission to leave if they want to, because it's just like a session. They have the right to vote with their feet. If they don't feel like they're getting the content that they were expecting, or they need to go someplace else, you have to realize people might leave your presentation. So those are all things that we will be considering. Anything else? Anything that you are not sure how we're doing, Amanda? Real life and virtual.
Yeah, in terms of the networking thing, I don't have like a technical, like anything's particularly special, but one of the things that I've noticed, one is in the breakout rooms, and in our last training, I'm not sure if this worked this way, but the chat will stay within the breakout room. You can still see like the public chat from the main one, but once everybody goes to the breakout rooms, it just stays to the breakout rooms, so you can exchange emails, phone numbers that way with people. And so that's what I've done with sometimes with others in those breakout rooms, is if we've connected, or if we share something, or if they're like, oh, I'd really love to learn more about that, then I'll put my email in the chat, or they'll put their email in the chat. And so I just have to save it. And so it's not the most perfect way, but that's one way to do it.
And you can also do individual chat. So you can chat to the whole group, or you can actually chat to a person in that presentation. So people can share personal, more private information one-on-one in the chat thing, in the chat menu. One of the things that we're going to try doing as well is, once the presentation is over, we're going to save the chat, make sure that all the questions have been answered, forward any that weren't over to the speaker. So we'll sort of keep a record of some of that conversation. And then also maybe it will be helpful to share that with you, because it'll remind you of maybe places you might want to change your presentation in the future, or gosh, I really confused them with this, because I think the chat is really getting inside everybody's head that you normally don't have that opportunity when you're in a live presentation. You don't get to see that after the fact.
And Laura, to add on, Jeannie, she calls it her backseat driving, Jeannie. She messaged me in chat saying that an idea would be to use the registration and let the attendees know and opt in or opt out that we'll share their information with the presenter for any follow-up. So that is also a really great idea. Thank you.
Great.
Right. And
Mia, I saw your hand was up. Oh, sorry.
Did someone else have their hand up?
Yeah, Mia did, and then Deanna will go with you. Mia, you're on mute. It's my little mute. Yeah.
My bad. Spacebar is working earlier, not now, LOL. But it's been brought up in a couple of different ways, and I just wanted to pose something for folks to think about. Particularly, I'm with the New Mexico GS Network. Hi. And we have curriculum sometimes that can deal with tough subject matter, and I'm not familiar with what everybody's curriculum is, but particularly for a sensitive subject matter, I wanted to put it out there because we've been discussing the level of autonomy that we're able to give or not give our participants, and I want to stress, just from my perspective, how important that would be to be a collaborative point with our audiences, like regardless of the conference itself or not, really any call where we're the educators and potentially at a position of power, particularly now when a lot of folks' autonomy are less than they usually are. I just want to stress that we can think of different ways to collaboratively establish the dynamic of our audience and the way we deliver curriculum. And I think that is another point at which we can build rapport with participants as well, to make things less boring and less like we're talking at a wall, because then we acknowledge your consent.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mia. Deanna, did you have something for us?
Yeah, this is going back to networking and providing contact information and I don't know how I'm not really great at technical, but I know like maybe creating a QR scan code, kind of like similar to how students do when they go to college fairs, so that they don't have to like fill out the contact information forms anymore for colleges. They can create a little scan code so that people can scan with their phone, and then they just automatically get the contact information. I'm not exactly sure how all of that works. That's a little bit more
totally do that.
technical.
So any other questions, concerns?
Jen has her hand raised.
Or is she stretching? Yes, Jen.
Hey there. Theo's saying hi too. I had a question. It was kind of piggybacking off of what Mia mentioned too around confidentiality. I've run into this challenge in some of my other workshops that some participants don't want to be recorded. And so in the workshop part where there's the Q&A, are we recording them all, and how are we communicating with participants to make sure that they're consenting to be recorded? That sort of thing. How are we going to handle that to make sure they're comfortable?
So that is an awesome question, and something we will address. So I think, you know, I was thinking for when people register, they do a photo video release. And so I think we probably need to have that feature when people register in. So we'll look at doing that for sure. And then I think, yeah, if they don't want to be recorded, we need to decide if it's audio, video, or both. If it's video, they can just, you know, take their camera off when they're in this group environment, which is challenging for the presenter. And if it's audio, then we would have to make note of that and go back and edit it out. And that would be the only solution, is for us to edit it and, you know, to beep them out. But thank you for bringing that up. And making sure that we address that. So we'll definitely look into implementing that.
Cool. Thank you.
So it's a whole new world, man. Any other questions? I don't see any other hands. So you guys are all good to go, and you're like, let's do this. So what's going to happen in the next few days is we will be releasing the calendar of all the webinars that are scheduled between May and April. And we'll be doing as much marketing as we can through our email list, through our Facebook, and through whatever other channels we have. Now, the challenge is, as we know, that a lot of our audience is not checking their work emails. So we're going to hit them up, and we're also we'll probably pay to promote some of them. So we might get some people out of New Mexico if they hit the calendar, because our goal is to get you as many, you know, to make sure that you have an audience. We were also thinking about capping the audience for these webinars to no more than 48, 49 people, which is the max that you can see on a screen, depending on your processor, or it's 25. We'll take feedback from you on what you want to cap, and it might depend on how interactive. We would rather that it be a little smaller if you could have more dialogue, because I think sometimes that's where some of the really cool stuff happens. So we'll need your feedback, and if anyone has any thoughts about that, please let me know on how many people we should be accommodating. But that was sort of what we were going to start with. The bar was 48 people. All right, so with that, I think I just want to thank you. I want to thank you for your time today. I want to thank you for, you know, taking the leap with us. You know, we're learning with you, and I hope this was a helpful use of your time and is making you feel a little bit more confident, or at least a little bit more aware of all of the features Zoom has and how you can incorporate that into your presentation. Please know that we are here to help you. Jackie is your go-to speaker liaison. I know Alicia has been helping her. Susan, who's also on the call, will be helping, as well as Claudia. So we're all going to be there to give you as much time as you need. We want this to be awesome, and we're very confident that with the content expertise that you have and our ability to package this all together, we're going to have a great experience and continue helping those whose job is even going to be more important come August, when school is hopefully back in session. They're going to need our school health providers to be ready to go, informed, educated, energized, And we thank you for doing that. So the Kesselman-Jones team will stay on the line on the meeting. You're welcome to leave at any point. And if you have any questions or like to discuss anything with us, we're here for you. Thank you.